All right, it's Thursday, April 4th. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today we end up with a 2-up failure day that ended up into a 3-bar where we gapped up strongly at first, and then by the end of the day we closed much lower with a red bar, took out the high and low of the previous day, and you can see this bar from a volatility standpoint is substantial relative to most days, but there were some key inflection points in play and some key intraday price structure developments that kind of led the way. And, if you look at the bigger picture, again, we were always a little bit in conflict this week, as I've discussed on some recap videos, where the weekly chart was still red from the very beginning, and this is still the monthly and the quarterly chart too, as it turns out. And at the same time, price was kind of gapped, had a reversal bar here, went up higher, yesterday, and then even gapped up higher today within that red weekly bar. So the key was always going to be, could you get above this purple line and turn the weekly chart back to green and test the weekly highs? And that sort of was the expectation today on the big gap to the upside. If we look at the 15-minute price structure, after yesterday's close, we gapped up very strong. The pre-market range was between the blue line. So, you're certainly above the midpoint of the prior day, and that you could move up here on a compound fashion, this bar, this bar, this bar, to take out these highs up here, and that's what you're kind of looking for. So out of the gates, the market decided to, after some, there's always some exhaustion risk on a big gap up, came down in a little bit, and then eventually had a green bar here. And I shot a video how I bought some calls here for the red to green move to take out the high of the day, and then to see if we could kind of go to some of these targets up here. So price definitely went up and took out the high of the day. So there was a trade here that offered a no risk opportunity if you scale out, or even if you wanted to break even at worst, at least you got things moving your way for an hour and almost 2 hours, because there was an orderly pause here, and you were kind of waiting for that next push up, a green bar, to start that move towards some of the targets. But what happened was price never really got above the first bar high. After that, we kind of then broke down big red right near the intraday lows, and I actually bought some puts here just because of this structure that I kind of look for over and over again day after day. I'm always looking at how price moves relative to the first bar, and it makes either two pushes up, and if it fails it might come back, and I'm looking at the intraday highs and lows as my targets for either secondary moves, the upside, or potential failure moves. So in this case, given that we had after that orderly pause, and it looked like it might head up, had a big red bar going down right near the low. So at that point, I figured liquidity wise, it was going to take out this target here. And I also saw a pre-market range kind of ledge here that it could take out. Even, it could stay above the midpoint of the prior day, but still have a bit of a pullback. So I bought puts right here. After I had some calls here that were good gains, and then reversed to the sell side. I didn't know this would happen, but once then volatility started picking up, you saw that not only was it going to hit this target, but then it sliced right through that. Then the next target was the pre-market lows of the blue line, and at that point you're below you're getting past the halfway point of the prior day. So then you could target the low of the previous day for an outside bar, and obviously then the next target was down here, and so on. And then we're crossing this green line that was such a critical line on a couple of days ago, where I discussed that was the monthly midpoint, and that's where, when price started down, if it was going to hold and start up again, that was a logical place to reverse. So it looked like that might be developing, but now we're below that point. So we don't have a 2-down month yet, but now we have the possibility of either having a 2-down month if we continue red and break that low, or we could kind of stay inside for a while here on the monthly chart. We don't know for sure, but given that we're breaking below the midpoint, I sense we could really have a big trading range inside this month if it doesn't want to get a 2-down month. What did develop here, as the market was kind of really moving down, at that point you sense this bar was a big red bar developing, and it kind of got the 2-down week back into force. And in my mind, once I saw it really falling down here, I all of a sudden in my mind said this is going to, by either today or tomorrow, reach our target. 2 down week hits this target right here below 510, I believe, something like that, 511 something. But anyway, I see that kind of very high probability to be taken out tomorrow, because this is the first 2 down week we've had since way back here. This one just came down, took out its target, and then it reversed up. This 2 down week, even though it was kind of tricky in the sense that for 2.5 days try to go higher, there's nothing wrong with it coming down and taking out this target. And there's kind of a pivot machine gun you can see as well. So we're just going to have to really see how much I think that target should be hit down here, and then we'll see what really develops. So essentially this is a 3-bar on the daily time frame, which means it brought higher highs and lower lows. So the question is that just kind of choppiness that's going to eventually get a little 2 down and then go back up through the range, or does this expansion on this smaller time frame lead to then continuation into expansion on a bigger time frame? And that's what I kind of see with this bar. I see this broadening bar means on this short time frame, it broadened lower, and that to me is kicking in the higher time frame, making its broadening action, which would go down to here. And then it's possible the monthly time frame might have a 2 down, but that would have to broaden out all the way down to here if that's going to happen. So I almost see this as kind of a pinball effect for this broadening here to lead to a broadening on the next time frame, the weekly chart, to take out those lows. If this closed strongly red tomorrow, then we expect a little lower into the week after that, and there are some pivots down here to take out, and that's all of this action here. So we'll see if that unfolds, but for now, it's just a 3-bar, which means there's no real actionable signal, but I sense that the weekly chart is going to try to take out its 2 down low down here. So again, to repeat today, the only real trades, according to at least the way I judge 50-minute price action, was to try a red to green move here for the uptrend above the midpoint of the prior day. And once it came down, once it failed to make it, you didn't get a secondary trade in here. And once it came down there, given the way I, think price after big gaps up and that start getting near the low of the day can test liquidity, even if it wants to head higher, there was a sell right here, and it ended up obviously working out really well if you took that trade like that, and now we end up on the lows of the day, which should follow through and test those lows tomorrow. And like I said, I think should hit the weekly lows. So let's just see how the week ends up. But this to me is kind of a pretty important day that took out the midpoint of the prior month. We have a target now to the weekly low. That means the weekly chart turns red, and that means lower, testing lower into the next week. So I don't see, and finally, it's going to be tough to get all the way back up through this bar. When you see a big bar like this, that becomes, they call it like a mother bar in strat terms. It's hard to get back up through that bar anytime soon. So that's another reason. Even if it pauses in here, it's going to consolidate and might be very choppy price action if that happens. So not easy to get all the way back up to that bar once it forms. It's going to take a lot of unique price action to eventually maybe resume back up again. It's going to probably have to come down in the weekly chart and form some type of reversal that to start back up and to finally take out the month and quarterly highs up here eventually, but that doesn't seem likely. Although the final thing is there is an economic number, a jobs report. Maybe the market, just did this prior to the report, and maybe it can gap up big after some very positive number, but we'll see what happens in the morning. So that's another thing that is developing too. But to me, this is kind of a bar that will be difficult to get back to the upside anytime soon. There's going to have to be a lot of price work to be done to eventually feel a comfortable reversal up that's going to be sustainable, but we'll find out. So that's today, unique day, but a day where at least price action wise, you wouldn't get hurt. And if you got lucky, I guess, or you kind of viewed that this move down was going to at least take out that low, there was an opportunity to actually buy some puts in here. And once you sort of headed lower, get below the midpoint, halfway point of the prior day, you knew the low of the previous day was going to take it out. So anything in here you could have shorted, aggressively, just kind of gauging that we were likely heading back into the 2 down week scenario. But I can't, that's just something that depending how you trade or how you analyze price, but there was no reason once it broke down to ever think of getting back to the long side. So anyway, we'll see what happens tomorrow, jobs report, and like I said, at least for now, I'm expecting follow through to the weekly lows.